A haunting at Site 17. The cold night air blew overhead, causing the leaves on the cornstalks to sway and rustle. Stacy was much shorter than the tall rows of corn surrounding her, preventing her from seeing further than just a few feet ahead. Above her was a dark purple sky with hints of yellow and red on its edges. This helped illuminate the cornfield just a bit, though Stacy knew it wouldn't last. She needed to get moving. Reaching out, she parted the stalks erected in front of her, stepping between them. More stalks awaited her. So, she repeated the process, slowly but surely making her way through the cornfield. After a bit, her eyes landed on a break in the corn a few rows ahead of her. Pushing herself forward, she found herself stepping out into a small opening in the field. In the center of the opening was a scarecrow posted on a wooden tee. It was wearing a blue flannel shirt, and the straw poking out of the sleeves resembled a three-fingered hand. What caught her eye was the pumpkin head. It was lopsided and misshapen, as though it had been left out for weeks and rotted. This caused the eye and mouth holes to be equally as deformed and unnaturally shaped. Along with its figure, the pumpkin was also covered in scratch marks. Some were deeper and longer than others, though none seemed to pierce down to the hollow inside. Standing on the scarecrow's shoulder was a large black bird. Stacy wasn't able to tell if it was a crow or a raven. The bird was scratching and pecking at the pumpkin with its beak, though somehow Stacy knew the animal wasn't responsible for the marks on the gourd. The bird stopped pecking as Stacy approached. Instead, it turned and stared down at the girl with deep, blood-red eyes. Stacy stopped dead in her tracks, meeting the bird's gaze. They stood still for several moments, staring at each other, before the bird went back to pecking at the pumpkin. Stacy watched in silence as the bird assaulted it, wondering to herself why the bird was so determined to attack the thing. As she pondered the bird's motivation, she felt something inside her mouth fall to her tongue. Without thinking, Stacy spat whatever it was onto the ground below. Curious, she knelt down and gazed at what she had just spit out. It was a tooth. Her heart stopped as she raised a hand to her mouth. Using her tongue to feel around, she found that it had been her upper right canine that fell out. Stacy gasped, both out of shock and fear. Teeth didn't grow back after all. As Stacy's mind began to race, she felt more of her teeth start to loosen. One by one, her mouth emptied of the bone, until only 4 or 5 teeth remained. The rest had fallen to the ground, scattered, and leaving Stacy surrounded. Then, to make matters worse, Stacy felt a clump of her hair fall to the ground. She wasn't sure how she had felt it, but she knew she had. Clump after clump began falling around her, mixing with the scattered teeth. Reaching up, Stacy caught a wad of hair before it fell and held it out in front of her. As she gazed down at it, she noticed that her arm was grayer, drier than usual. Dropping the hair, Stacy rubbed her fingers in the palm as she observed her skin. It had sunk and aged, appearing more like the arm of an old corpse rather than that of a teenage girl. The deterioration didn't stop at her arm. Stacy felt her face sink as well. The bones in her cheeks and around her eyes seemed to morph and bend in a way Stacy couldn't see, but knew. The skin on her fingers and hands, drier and hoarier than the rest, began to peel off the bone. White, skeletal fingers appeared in the places where skin used to be. Stacy stared in horror as the division between skin and bone slowly crept up her hands. As she watched, the bird let out a high-pitched scream in a way she could never find the words to perfectly describe. It was like the combination of a crow call and a woman's shriek. Regardless, it caused Stacy to look up at where the bird had been. But the bird was gone, without any trace as to where it went. The scarecrow had also changed, though for the more unsettling. Its pumpkin head, which had before been staring straight forward, was now angled downward, as if to gaze at Stacy directly. It had also somehow become more rotten and disfigured, with the lopsidedness becoming even more exaggerated. The eye and mouth holes in turn also became more misshapen, with the mouth in particular being crooked into a malevolent, unnatural smile. But what caused Stacy's blood to go cold wasn't the deformed head or eerie smile. It was the pair of eyes that stared back at her from within the pumpkin. The eyes looked human in structure, but were inverted in color. The irises were a pale black that seemed to consume even the darkness of the hollowed pumpkin. By contrast, the pupils were an unsettling white that seemed to pierce Stacy's very essence. It was dark now. What little color had been present in the sky had faded into pure blackness. The corn stalks that had previously surrounded the girl had also faded into the void. All that remained was the scarecrow and its inverted eyes. Then, after a minute, even the body began to fade. The blue shirt, yellow straw, the dull orange pumpkin, it all seemed to slowly sink into the darkness behind it. The eyes, however, remained, staring at Stacy as she laid, unable to move. Unable to move. Stacy couldn't move. She tried desperately to move her body. When that failed, she tried her arm. When that failed, her hand, then her finger. Nothing. She was totally paralyzed, forced to stare at the eyes without even the moment of relief a blink would have given. Stacy felt her unblinking eyes begin to burn when the pair in front of her began to be surrounded by a shape. Even in the total darkness, Stacy could see an even darker darkness materialize around the eyes. It formed into the shape of a head, then under it a body. Then Stacy was able to make out the silhouette of a person standing above her in the darkness. Under the eyes formed 2 rows of moldy, rotten teeth, separated by an unnatural inner tooth spacing. The teeth lined into a crooked smile, not unsimilar to the malevolent smile worn by the pumpkin earlier. The thing stared down at Stacy as she tried desperately to move, to blink, to do anything. Stacy felt hot, musty air pressed against her face as the creature shifted its teeth to reflect an opened mouth. A shrill, feminine laugh echoed from the creature, causing a shiver to run down Stacy's back. And the next moment, it was gone. The eyes, the teeth, the outline, the laughing, the hot breath, all of it. Gone. At the very same time, Stacy found her ability to move restored. She blinked rapidly and shot up into a sitting position. Placing a hand on her chest, she inhaled and exhaled at a stunning pace. Frantically, her eyes darted around in an attempt to find her bearings. She was in her room, laying on her bed. A small light she kept on in her bathroom illuminated part of the cell, but for the most part, she was in darkness. It was a dream, Stacy thought, collapsing onto her pillow, her heart and breathing still running at 1,000,000 miles a minute, but her brain had finally found its footing. It was just a dream. Letting out a deep breath, Stacy turned her head to the digital clock resting on her nightstand. 6:08 a.m. Her eyes then drifted to the date implemented in the device. October 31st. Halloween.